Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the SH Monsterarts Godzilla vs. Kong from Godzilla vs. Kong 2021, aka Monkey from Monkey vs. Lizard. And it's the first Monsterarts I've reviewed in a very long time, but I'm going to be reviewing this guy, Monkey, and also his counterpart, Lizard. So if you guys are interested in those, stick around for that next video. There will be a comparison in this video, but this one's going to be all about Monkey, and it looks pretty darn good. There's a lot to like about this figure. There's a whole lot going on, and also at the same time, it's a very simple figure, which is a good thing in some ways. So plenty to talk about, so let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands, I have his legs bent just a little bit, by the way, because I don't think he's going to stand upright too much, but anyway, as he is, he stands just about, it's so hot in here, my ruler is bending. Happens to everybody. 3 and 5 guys anyway. Okay, it's about 5 3/4 inches tall, which makes it pretty close to about 15 centimeters. So not very big, considering he is King Kong and he fits in my hand comfortably. Not very large, but nobody expected he would be. But I'm sure you're all wondering, how does he compare against Lizard? And Monkey is equal or appropriately sized to go against Lizard. You can see Lizard's a little bit taller, and by the time this movie came out, Monkey grew to about that size. So I think that's good with scaling. No problems there. Now, as far as aesthetics go, this guy does have a mostly matte or satin finish, but we do have some shinier parts around his torso and his face and his hands and feet, and I think that's really good. I do wish he was more matte for the fur, because I'll show you real quick. The Lizard is very matte, very, very matte, and I think it would look better on Monkey to also be matte. But the hair also is kind of shiny, but his would be dirty, so it's like, yeah, you could make an argument either way. I think it's fine the way it is, though. I could just see people preferring it to be matte. I could go either way, personally. As far as the shading goes, there is shading throughout, which makes the hair look nice. Then there's overall chunks of shading to like color his chest and his hands and his feet and that kind of thing, in his face. I do think it would be better to be a little bit more pronounced as far as the colors go, but it definitely looks good enough. And they did a really good job with his eyes. I love the way his eyes look. Very, very nice, very realistic. Sculpt is good on the face. Really no problems at all. The scratches on the chest are pretty good. I think it looks pretty sharp. I like it. I think they did a good job breaking up the pieces also. It's a good job. Not normally, you can easily break up a figure to where it doesn't look right, and they broke it up right where they needed to, in natural places, so you didn't end up with a weird silhouette or anything like that. So I'm very pleased with it overall. So for the aesthetic, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. There's not a whole lot more they could have done other than, kick up the contrast and the coloring just a little bit and maybe make it more matte. Like, those are very subjective, somewhat objective, but mostly subjective things. So yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, now as far as accessories go, we have the neutral head that comes on him in the package. Then we have a yelling head, which looks very nice. We have the 2 fist hands that come on him in the package. We have 2 knuckle hand walking hands, whatever you want to call those, a couple of gripping hands, and then a couple of relaxed hands. All very nicely done. And then lastly, we have his Godzilla axe thingy, which is pretty well done. The fin or spike, whatever you want to call it, for the blade does not match Godzilla's blades, and I know it's not, I don't remember now. He didn't take it from Godzilla. He found it in the cave, right? I don't remember. Either way, it doesn't match Godzilla. If you like that, you like that. If you don't, you don't. Now you know that that's the case. So accessory-wise, nothing crazy, but I think it's probably good enough. I wouldn't have minded if we got like a couple of tiny things that he had grabbed at some point in the movie. I'm sure, I can't remember. Like, did he throw a train, or am I mixing that up with Pacific Rim? Either way, a couple more accessories would have been cool, but not necessary. So I think that's fine. I'll give it a 7. 7 or 8 out of 10 for accessories. That's plenty. Alternate head, accessory hands. That's fine. It's not impressive, but it's fine. It is just a big monkey, so it's not like you need tons of accessories. He's King Kong. He's going to be punching things and standing there mostly. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. Now, this is an interesting thing. If you're not familiar with Monsterarts, most of the joints, if not, I think all but 2 of the joints, I'm pretty sure all but 2 of the joints are actually just ball pegs. And in a lot of ways, that's really good. And in some ways, it does limit the range quite a bit. For the head, we have a double ball peg up here, which is the best thing you can do for a neck ever when executed properly. This one is executed averagely. So you can lean the head up and down on that ball peg alone, those 2 ball pegs. And then It of course can rotate around. Now the problem with this guy is the small size of the top of his head and the big size of the bottom part of his head. So Bandai is kind of in a pickle there. Not much they could have done about that, but it is fairly limited there. But the neck itself is also on a ball peg, and if you use all the joints together, he can look up pretty well. It does get kind of weird looking, but there's nothing they could do about that, so that's fine. Looking down is the thing that's oddly limited on this guy, and it's only odd in that it's not odd. I should say it could have been done better if they like did some kind of slip joint in the neck, but that's asking too much. So I think that's fine, but it is difficult for him to look down. It kind of just slides his neck down, but with his big beard and chin and everything, it's to be expected. So that's fine. Not as much range as is possible, but definitely good enough. You know, it could be better, but it would end up costing a fortune, so that's okay. For the shoulders, just ball pegs. We have some big ball pegs in there. They move around well enough. There is no ball hinge in there, so you can't raise the arm higher than that. It's probably enough, and you can rotate it around, but you can see the ball pegs are in there, and I do think this is a place where they definitely should have incorporated a hinge just in this part, because that would have allowed more range in the arm, and he is a gorilla, so more range in the shoulder would have been really useful. But that being said, you get most of the range you would want anyways, so it's all right. And then this is actually a floating piece. We have a couple of ball pegs connecting all of these different arm pieces together, and it turns out that you get a bicep swivel. Practically speaking, you get a bicep swivel, which doesn't give you a ton of range, but it's there. And you get a little bit of play in the elbow parts too, because again, we're dealing with ball pegs, not hinges. And then you can hinge them. I mean, it's still ball pegs, but it functions like a hinge to better than 90 degrees. And I think that's pretty good. That's definitely enough range. I don't think you need more than that. And it looks good throughout. They did a good job. I will say, I'm curious if anybody else has this problem. On mine, we have a couple of short spots on here where the plastic didn't go all the way through in the mold. It looks like we have one here and then also one right here. And it's not a big deal, obviously, but I did notice that. It would look better if they weren't there. It looks like his fur is broken. So yeah, I'm just curious if anybody else has that. But then we also have double ball pegs for the hands, and that gives you plenty of range. Let me grab like a waving hand here. And you should be able to get pretty good range out of this guy. Yeah, you're gonna end up with some gapping, as is always the case, but that's good enough. You'll be able to get some posing done, so that's cool. I like that. For the torso, we have a couple of more ball pegs. This piece in here, this right here is mostly a floating piece. His whole like rib cage piece. His pecs are up here in his abdominal section. There's a big ball peg, double ball peg that's inside there that allows the whole thing to come forward really well, and it allows the whole thing to go back really well also, and that looks actually really good. I like the way they did this. They definitely paid attention to the anatomy as they were designing the engineering. They did a very good job with that, so it leans back very far. And you might notice as you're posing it that it gets real gappy sometimes, like that for instance. Remember, this piece is not connected. You can just readjust it and shift it. And I found that it works exceptionally well, like way better than I thought it was going to. They definitely paid attention to what they were doing when they designed this guy. Leans out to the side. Now you can create some gaps like that, like that's pretty terrible. But again, if you spend some time, you can shift this and stick it in there, and it's gonna hide the joint a whole lot better than it was. So you're gonna only have a little bit of gapping, and there's not much you can do. I mean, he does have really good range and rotation, and you're gonna end up with some gaps, but most of them can be hidden with a little bit of extra effort, so that's pretty cool. Down here, we have another ball peg for his abdomen to crotch piece. Mine's very stiff. It doesn't get that much range going forward and back, so maybe that's just the capacity of it. And same thing side to side. But also I noticed when I go to rotate it, it really doesn't want to. It can, but it sticks a lot. So I'm thinking mine's just really stuck. Hard to say for sure, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about his hips. We have a ball peg, or a hinged ball peg for each hip, so it works like your Dragon Ball figures or Kamen Rider. I think Kamen Rider are doing this now. Maybe not. I think Kamen Rider is still on the swivel hinge. Anyway, it's your standard hinged ball peg. Let me pull the parts off to show you. You can see your hinge in there. Hopefully you can see that. Then we have a big ball peg up here, and that lets the main hip move. And then this piece, double ball peg, goes all the way through the thigh, all the way through this piece and into the knee. And that covers the whole, everything to here. And it gives you decent range. You can move them around pretty well. You can bring that leg forward. And not as far back because he has a pretty big monkey butt. Going out to the side, it works just fine. You do get thigh swivel in there, technically, and then the knee does bend on that joint pretty well. You get basically as full a knee bend as you would expect any figure to have. And even though it's still just ball pegs down here, you still get that range. So that's pretty cool. Then the ankle and everything is on more ball pegs. And it's just a matter of adjusting these. There's a lot of floating pieces. You just keep adjusting them and you can get really good range out of things. They did a really, really good job on Monkey. Very pleased with that. You can rotate it for a nice ankle rocker. There's another one mid-foot to give him like a toe bend, kinda. Very, very solid. They did a really nice job on this guy. Let's see if I can get him together real quick, just so that he looks good for the rest of the video. Now, I will say one thing, since we're talking about articulation here. It does work exceptionally well considering it's a bunch of ball pegs. They spent a lot of time engineering this guy to work properly. It's great in so many ways. However, you will have, by nature of it being ball pegs only, if you force a joint too much, it just pops out. Like that, for instance. That popped off from what I did earlier. With hinges, obviously that's not going to happen, but this is not dangerous. They're not going to break or anything. There's no loose joints. They just might pop off. It's a little bit of an inconvenience, but that's just the nature of ball pegs. So I'm not real worried about that. They're palm-on-palm joints, fairly shallow sockets, so I don't think you're going to have any breakage or cracks or anything like that. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. But yeah, the articulation's solid. For being just a bunch of basic ball pegs, it's fine. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I do think hinges would have provided some good range in a few places. Ball pegs don't serve every purpose perfectly, but it definitely works well enough. Okay, time for the final verdict on this guy. Being that it was mostly ball pegs, I was very concerned that he was going to be a lot more limited than he is, especially with all the fur and thickness. That one popped off just now. It is frustrating that everything pops off probably too easily, but it's not going to break, so I don't know. If things aren't loose and don't break, I don't mind that much if they pop off. It's just really annoying, and it's not really a problem for me, but you know that it's there, so you can decide if it's a problem for you. But anyway, yeah, it poses well. It looks really good. I'm a big fan of Monkey. I mean, as far as a non-kaiju type person is, I like Monkey and Lizard plenty, so I like it. I think it looks good. I think you'll like it. If you really like Monkey, then you're going to like it a lot. If you don't, then you might enjoy it still. So I'm going to give it a final verdict of 8 out of 10. It's a strong release. It's not like the most impressive thing in the world, but I can't see too many people being disappointed with it. It looks good. There's plenty of paint on it. It poses well. Decent enough accessories. What the heck? Pick one up. I think you'll like it. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you might want to. I have new videos almost every single day, and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. And in the meantime, keep collecting.